It's been over a month now since Revived Witch released globally. As a player since day one, here are my honest thoughts on the game. First, let's go over the pros. The pixel art and music are both really well done. The gameplay is solid, and there's a wide variety of different possible team combinations you can build. While nothing groundbreaking, the main story was also enjoyable and interesting for me. Finally, I believe the game is quite generous in general, which is a pretty significant point for most gacha game players. For example, the recent Phantom Mirror of Stars event had a good amount of rewards, which is a positive sign for future events. Next, let's go over the cons of the game, because it's not all sunshine and rainbows. For example, even though the rewards were good for the Phantom Mirror of Stars event, the story of that event was pretty lackluster. And to be frank, it was disappointing to me. The story of that event was pretty low quality. It was basically a bunch of static text, and unfortunately that text wasn't translated very well either. It was difficult for me to follow. I'm personally hoping that the quality of stories for future events will improve, but we'll see. The game also crashes sometimes, at least for me, which isn't good. To be fair, my phone is old though, so that might just be a me thing. Another thing you could argue as a con is just the fact that it's a gacha game, so the game often tempts you to spend money. So if you're a person who can't help swiping your credit card compulsively, I don't think you should play this game. Although of course, Yostar may disagree with me on that point. Finally, the endgame content right now is pretty sparse after you complete the main story. It is a brand new gacha game though, so that's kind of to be expected. I'm sure more content will be developed with time. Here's a somewhat ambiguous point, which could be either a pro or a con, depending on the person. Revived Witch doesn't have much daily playtime once you beat the main story. You could literally burn all your gacha stamina at once in 5 to 10 minutes, depending on whether you feel like using a stamina potion, if you're just mana, gear, or material farming in the endgame. For busy people, this may actually be a good thing because the game won't eat up much of your time. But for people who want a game that they can play constantly for hours on end on a daily basis, this game would probably end up a side game for you if you do regularly play it after you reach the endgame. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but just something to keep in mind. Although if you do the PvP, that extends the daily playtime just a little bit. Now, let's get serious and address the elephant in the room for all gacha game players. Is Revived Witch free-to-play friendly? For most gacha game players, this is understandably a very important question. My answer to this is that unless Yostar changes the existing way things work, Revived Witch is in fact very free-to-play friendly in my opinion. Here's why I feel that way. For starters, the Mirror of the Otherworld, the weekly Broken Lands, and getting 90 souls daily, 60 from the daily shop, and 30 from daily commissions, means that getting summon currency for free-to-play players is much more accessible than most other gacha games. It's entirely possible to get enough summon currency for a summon per day through normal gameplay, excluding any events. With the Mirror of the Otherworld, players can potentially get a ridiculous number of souls per day, although it's super RNG, so I wouldn't obsess over refreshing the mirror too much if you find it bothersome. Anyway, I've been able to roll 205 times in the gacha so far, and I still have a ton of summon resources left over. For a brand new gacha game, the amount of times I've been able to summon is pretty high compared to most other gacha games I feel like. And I've played numerous other gacha games like Fire Emblem Heroes, Pokemon Masters, Another Eden, Tales of Crestoria, and Genshin Impact. This game actually might be the most generous of all those gacha games I've played in terms of how much summon currency you can receive regularly. Second, in the game's monthly shop, you can straight up buy an ultra rare character, the most rare characters in the game, each month for 100 gold feathers. For example, this month you can buy Caledonia in the shop if you wanted to. If you're an Akasha player, I'd highly recommend getting her, by the way. Anyway, what this means is that it's possible to get certain UR characters you want without having to deal with RNG to get them, provided that you're willing to be patient. That's actually huge, in my opinion. In Genshin Impact, for example, you've definitely never been able to buy a 5-star character in that game's in-game store. Revived Witch also gives away a free UR character, Flora, for completing a series of achievements. Third, in most gacha games, pulling duplicates of characters grants huge power boosts. In this game, dupes aren't that powerful at all, however. For example, you'd think I'd have been happy about getting an Akasha dupe because she's my favorite character in this game. But I was actually kinda mad about getting an Akasha dupe because it was essentially useless, so I'd rather have gotten another character. This Akasha dupe gave my Akasha a whopping 90 extra physical defense or something, which is basically worthless because Akasha is a DPS character, not a tank. What dupes not being super strong means, however, is that long term, you won't necessarily auto lose in PvP just because you're fighting a whale, as long as you have similar ascension level, gear, and skills leveled up as your opponent. So dupes not being super strong is actually a good thing for free-to-play and low-spending players. Finally, the banners and Revived Witch have guaranteed pity. Enough said, not all gacha games have that, and it's definitely appreciated when it's there. Because of all these reasons, I believe Revived Witch is free-to-play friendly, if you define that as not feeling like you'll fall behind, or not feeling like you won't be able to do content because you don't spend lots of money. However, to make things clear, I do not think you'll be able to pull every single character you want in this game as a free-to-play player. In my personal opinion, that's fine, especially if you're playing the game literally for free. You'll just need to prioritize and spend your resources wisely if you want to get the characters you want the most. To summarize, here's why I think you might want to play this game. 1. You like the pixel art and the music sounds good to you. 2. The wide variety of team building options is appealing to you. 3. The gameplay looks fun to you. 4. You want to play a gacha game that's actually free-to-play friendly. And here's why I think you might not want to play Revived Witch. The first reason could be just that the game looks really bad to you. Maybe you're not a fan of pixel art, or the gameplay looks boring to you. Fair enough, everyone's got their own tastes. The music is solid though, you gotta give it some credit. The second reason for why you wouldn't want to play this game is that you hate all gacha games on principle. I can actually absolutely understand this, especially since I grew up playing games where you straight up bought them. I obviously don't feel the same way, and think there's room for both payment models in the video game industry, but I can absolutely understand your feelings. The third reason why you wouldn't want to play this game is, let's be real, this game is full of waifu bait. If that type of thing is a deal breaker to you, then don't play the game. However, in my opinion, just because the game has waifu bait or fan service, doesn't mean that the whole thing is automatically bad. Is it a positive thing? No, not really in my opinion, but sex sells as they say, so I can understand why it's there. Also, you have to evaluate the whole package. If the game was all flash and no substance, then yeah, the game would be bad. However, I do think that Revived Witch does actually have substance to it. Revived Witch is a waifu bait game, but it's not just a waifu bait game, as we went over in the earlier pros section of this video. Is Revived Witch the best game I've ever played? No, there are lots of games I would easily consider better than it. Even just within the gacha game genre, I'd say I like Genshin Impact more. Although I do really like Genshin, so that's a tough comparison. But I will say this, for me at least, Revived Witch has been fun for me to play. I wouldn't say it's a masterpiece, but I do think it's an enjoyable game that can continue to improve as more content for it is developed. As for me, I'll keep playing Revived Witch for as long as I continue to find it fun, as I do with any other game. And for the past little over a month, I've had a good time. When I feel like there's something particularly interesting for me to say regarding the game, I'll consider making a video on it. However, I don't want to force myself to release a video if I don't think there's actually anything interesting for me to talk about, because I feel like that lack of interest would show and make for bad videos. But I will keep on posting videos on any video game topics that interest me at the time, including for this game of course. Other games I play include Genshin Impact and Super Smash Bros. Melee. And I started Tales of Arise recently, which has been really fun so far. But I enjoy a wide variety of games, so I could make a video on a bunch of different things really. I'll also be doing piano covers of various video game and anime songs. No promises, but I could be doing piano covers of Revived Witch songs at some point, since this game does have a really awesome soundtrack. If content like that interests you, feel free to subscribe and stick around. Thanks for watching. As always, take care and have a good one.